Not so much.
I don't think it's apathy.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's disinterest.
Okay, well, John, we've started now. So, right, welcome people to the April of the Neighbourhood Plan Working Group, Bingley Town Council. Tonight we're going to go through the survey response, which is on the agenda, but we'll start off at the beginning with 23, 24, 65. Apologies for absence. Eve, have we got the apologies?
Received.
None received, so we're not going to consider them and approve them. Disclosures of interest in item 66. Have we got any declarations from councillors in the room? No. Have we received any written requests, Steve? No. So we're not going to go on any of those then. So minutes of the last meeting held on the 28th of February 2024. We have a late arrival. Thank you, Philippa. Local camp on here if we got verified.
I'll move on to work. Here you go. Round it up for you.
Hello there, Mark.
Hey there. Is it your back? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, we've only just started, Mike. So minutes of the last meeting, did anyone have any observations or comments on them? No? Can I deem them as an accurate representation?
Yeah.
Forwarded, proposed by John Decker, would that we accept them? Anyone? Seconded by Councillor Gibbons. So all in favour of accepting the minutes for those who are here?
Well, I were absent, so.
Okay, thank you very much. 23, 24, 68 confidential items to be discussed in confidence after item 72. I don't think there are any. But if anyone else thinks there are some confidential items on it, now's the time to speak. No. So we'll move on then to public participation. There are no members of the public in it, which is disappointing to say the least, I think. But having said that, they can't participate because they're not here. So we'll move on swiftly again to 23, 24, 70, which is a regulation 14 consultation. To receive an update on and to agree any actions and recommendations arising from the regulation 14 consultation, including on the following: feedback from the open day. So we'll start there. So I thought the open day was reasonably satisfying. From my point of view, I was a bit disappointed that it took about 45 minutes for anyone to show up. But once they did show up, they tended to come in the 2 hours or the hour and 20 minutes that were left, you know, in good numbers, I thought, for an open day. But I wasn't the only person here, so anyone else got a thought?
There were more the first one. That was the second one.
Yeah, the second one.
There was more the first one.
Yeah, I was away the first one.
Yeah.
I guess that's disappointing though, isn't it? Because the second one would have benefited from all the drops on Twitter and Facebook arising from our meeting about the first one. So disappointing.
I think we probably publicised the first one a bit more because the leaflets had gone out for those people that got them.
That wasn't a leaflet, yeah, rather than a 4 week. No, what
Yeah,
there's a 4 week delay,
yeah.
then people would
So
have
the
got.
leaflets had gone out. We'd got stuff saying it was happening. So I think we did get more people.
Yeah.
But I don't know what you can do.
Yeah, no, and I think it's appropriate to talk about the leaflets at this point. You know, actually advertising the open days and that, and the consultation. A couple of residents got them just last week, and complained on email, and I don't know how they did that. It can only be Royal Mail. I wouldn't have thought the survey company we used, or the print company we used, dropped them.
Well, they ship them all to them, don't they?
That's what I'm saying. They would have. I was thinking they maybe found a box and issued it, but I think it's probably Royal Mail.
Why would it be Royal Mail? Because they weren't individually addressed.
No, but they were distributed by Royal Mail.
Yeah, I
So
know
they
that. But why would they suddenly pick up a couple?
Because they found them, I guess. I don't know. I'm really guessing.
It might come back to, it's all supposition, but if they haven't delivered anything
If that person hadn't had any post for 4 weeks,
then when they get the next little post, they get the leaflet.
So that is a good point to and again, and you use that service, I think we should bear in mind that that's a possibility and see if we can obviate that, because that was poor. It was like two residents saying, hang on a minute, I've just got this yesterday and I noticed that the consultation's already closed. So what can you do about it? And the answer was nothing. So with apologies, you've missed it.
But let's not forget, we did put it
on Facebook.
We did have it on Facebook. We did have it in the TNA. We did have it in various places. There were lots of other avenues.
I don't think any delivery system
is
foolproof.
Yeah.
You know, I never get the annual newsletter, but I receive the notification for this. So we've used various delivery companies. There's going to be issues with any of them that we use.
I think the other thing I'd like to say about the open day is there was at least 4 residents who were positive about the work of the neighbourhood plan working group and said they were going to write to Eve and ask to join, as Eve would then have to put it on the full council agenda for ratification by the full council. And I noticed on the full council that no more new names appeared. And Eve's just confirmed that no such resident has actually written to her, which I say is disappointing because they were very enthusiastic on the day.
That lady,
and very enthusiastic. And I thought we could have done with some younger blood and more residents on here.
Then again, you know, once we've gone through this next bit, we have to think about what this group is and becomes.
Yes,
and it might be that they'll step forward then.
Yeah, might do. Yeah, but if they were on here, if they were here tonight, they would be more embedded in that culture and you know, lobbying the council to do something. So yeah,
I think in the future, if there's ever another time where we want to find out what the local residents think, I think engaging the shops, the supermarkets, the local shops, and having them all working with us as well, because that's where all the people go. And it makes it more personal if they have like leaflets in the shop and they can hand them out.
What you us standing at the shops?
No, just get the shop people to engage as well.
Okay.
You know,
we can try, Jen. We can try.
Yeah, just because that's where people go in Bingley at the moment. Isn't it?
Yeah. Anyone else got any other thoughts on the open day itself? No. Okay, so we move on to the responses then, including the statutory consultative responses, the residents' responses, and consideration of Cossiney as a special character area. So let's start with the statutory consultative responses. I haven't got them in any particular order unless anyone has an order they want to. You have a preference for order, Lee?
I've got the summary paper with the graphs on it, and then the summary of comments, which are 18 separate comments. Is that what you're talking about? Or you've got individual pieces of paper?
Talking about the statutory responses from the Coal Authority.
Oh, the statutory responses. I'm sorry. Right. Well, it was sent through in a zip folder to me. I'm happy to do it in any order you wish. Doesn't really matter.
I was just thinking, we do need to touch on at some point the fact that we haven't got any comments from Bradford at all.
No, well, that will come up.
You will need that. You will need that. It's hard to proceed without a comment from Bradford.
Okay, but the statutory commenting period is closed. We gave them 8 weeks. You know, that's a misnomer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It's just that when it comes to examination, it'll be quite a difficult thing if you haven't got a comment from Bradford.
Right. Okay. Well, so noted, Philippa. Thank you for that heads up. I hadn't spotted that, and it's a big one. So, can we propose that Eve sent a fairly stiff email to Ian Cunningham, pointing out that the consultation has closed and he's omitted to respond, puts Bingley Town Council in somewhat of a predicament? I suppose we'd have to let them in if they responded, but I do think they need a flea in their ear.
I mean, given they've seen it multiple times, they might not have much, but he did say you were sending it round everybody and he was going to consolidate.
Yeah, we gave him a heads up. We actually did a preparatory meeting with him. Yeah. He actually came here and had that preparatory meeting. So
was he enthusiastic?
Yeah. Oh, he knew all about it. Yeah.
Right.
And he was proposing how we did it. And
when they arrive, I expect to have at least, it will be pages. It won't be a page.
No, it will be pages. Yeah.
Well, he's done enough of them, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, he's given us pages before and we've gone through them.
Yeah, but he's been around all the other ones as well, hasn't he? He's been involved in them all.
Yeah.
If we're last in line, he'll have it all up to a T.
Okay. So, okay, with that so noted, don't need to note on you giving, vote on you giving, Bradford a jog, do we? No? Okay. So let's do the easy one first. Coal Authority. No comments. Is that fair enough?
No,
Yep.
no,
Good.
no comment.
Canal and River Trust then. I thought this was actually quite good. And the reason I thought actually gave us paragraphs, and I don't know whether you'd influence them there at all, Philippa.
No.
But because they've given us sample paragraphs to increase the utilisation of the canal and river, I thought it was quite good.
Different.
And
And the only difficult comment from them in terms of practical sense is they recommended inserting something into the master plan, which of course would involve reopening that, and you don't really want to do that. But I think the other comments could be accommodated in the document without too much trouble.
yeah,
It is actually funny when you read their response and you go back and check the master plan document, and it is funny how little the canal features in it as a feature itself. The fact that it's a cycle route features, but that's the main way in which it's referenced, not as a canal or as the resource that it provides. It's quite interesting.
but we where it says we recommend an additional paragraph in, these are not significant changes that would require us to
It's just an emphasis on what we got in the draft plan. Spine work and use of the towpath and so on.
We've certainly got opportunities. Sorry, John, I've cut across you. Do come up.
Okay.
So when they say we believe opportunities exist to improve signage to encourage trips utilising the canal path, towpath to the town centre, that actually doesn't have to go in the neighbourhood plan, because I've taken an action this year to actually do that map. And signage is a biggie, because that involves paying Bradford. You've just done signage things, haven't you? Do we need to pay Bradford to?
We need to pay people to do signs, whether it's
I thought there was
statutory road signs. We pay Bradford, and anything else we pay other people. Obviously, not necessarily CART, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so we could do that in terms of aspirational, and leave it at that. I can't say we are going to improve signage, because that would require a councillor to sponsor it, and B, money in the bank to do it.
We do have. We've had for years.
Yeah.
The way marking for 5 rides. It is one of the things that's in the budget.
Well,
Also, there's already a reference to signposting, improving signage in the policy and in the neighbourhood plan relating to the master plan. Signage to important places. So you just hook in a reference to the canal there.
So
it's not.
How do we do this, Lee? Do you think this group should go through these documents and approve the comments, or just are you note? Another option would be for you to note what we're approving and to deliver the changes.
Yeah, I was going to produce a track change version. I suppose the question is, which version am I working from? And then give you the track changes so that you can discuss and hopefully agree them.
There is only one version, Lee.
Yeah, I suppose that's just a question of whether you want me to just mark up the print version, or whether you want me to work in the Word version. The last version I gave you.
Yeah.
It's the track changes properly. It'll have to be Word.
Yeah, it'd have to be Word, but the current Word and the current PDF should be the same.
Yeah.
Because there was one comment that Richard Aldred couldn't change a particular table, and you kindly did it for us. So last change.
So I'll
So
do it in Word then, and then take it from there.
Yeah. Well, the next consultation, the Bradford one, they want it in Word anyway, don't they? Because they stick it on their own.
Yeah, they HTML it somehow, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah. Okay. So, any other comments on the Canals and River Trust that they're looking to improve the use of the canals and rivers, and we agree that those changes would be appropriate.
They specify section 17.2 should have an additional paragraph concerning the fact that the canal features several existing heritage assets, including original coping stones, mile markers, locks and bridges, and so on. I noted that down because I wasn't sure that we should actually be mentioning that in the neighbourhood plan, because that's part of the conservation area anyway.
Yeah.
The whole point of the Canals and Rivers Trust commentary, as far as I can see it, is for the preservation, enhancement of the existing facilities and so on. And that surely is taken care of anyway by its listed status.
Yeah.
And so I just felt that it was going to overburden the development, the plan with more
There is
information.
There is an analogy to what you just said there, in as much as we don't mention listed buildings in the document because they already have some.
Yes, because they have protection anyway.
Listed buildings, we didn't do conservation areas for that very purpose, did we? Because we would be repeating what's in there.
Yeah,
and I think that comes up in another one of the responses, doesn't it?
Yeah. I was proposing to say to this, and also to the Historic England response, that the policies related to scheduled monuments, listed buildings, and the conservation areas in the neighbourhood area are addressed by both national policies and by Bradford's policies, and that there's no need for the neighbourhood plan to restate and duplicate that information, and therefore the introduction of a specific piece of reference to heritage assets would then beg the question that others needed to be addressed, and therefore the decision was taken to not respond to that comment. That should be fine, because the way it's going, if the current government was pursuing what it wants to do in the future, then there would be a national development management policy for heritage in any case, which means that even Bradford's policy would be seen to be superfluous. So there's no need for the neighbourhood plan to do that. I think at this point you haven't put it in, so there's no need to introduce it.
Yeah. I think so. Thank you. Thank you for that, John, and thank you for those wise words, Lee. So, any more on the cart paper?
They mention improving the signage, don't they? Which we've already.
Well, that's already covered.
It's been a long running saga, that one.
They also mentioned something about beefing up a section of the canal, or repairing or reinstating, or of the towpath between.
Yes, to make the towpath more resilient, is what they said. But again, that's part of the listed status. Anyway, it's not part of Bingley's remit. I don't think.
Town council wouldn't want to spend their own money on that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say to that particular one is, surely that's within the auspices of the cart. It's in their land area.
Yes. They own it. Yeah.
They own it. So why would we pay?
Yeah.
But does that not still come under the Councillor John Good's thing for the towpath or the river walk down here? Isn't that owned by and managed by Yorkshire Water on behalf of? No, not quite the same.
Riparian owner.
Not quite the same.
Nothing to do with Yorkshire Water and its main river, and it's still riparian ownership either side. So it's whoever owns the land, which I guess is the council.
It will be, yeah.
I guess, I don't know.
I guess the point that the Canal and River Trust is making is that there may well be developers who seek to get support for their proposals by referring to the ability of people to use the canal for walking and for cycling, and thereby increase the use of the canal to the point where it's heavily used, and that puts a strain on the maintenance of the canal towpath. I don't know what kind of material the canal towpath is there, but if it's a kind of a hard packed kind of gravelly thing, then it will start to wear away. And so I suppose what they're doing is trying to flag up that it would be nice if the neighbourhood plan could refer to the need to ensure that towpath is kept up, and that developers might want to consider, you know,
I have no problem
to that. And I think we could put words of something like that in an appropriate place in the plan, if you were okay with that.
No problem with that aspiration, as long as we're not paying for it.
Does some of our footpaths go along with towpaths as well?
All of them.
Well, it's a national
no, not all of
cycle
them do. The one between flats in here do. Okay. Any other points then on the
not on
start?
No.
Okay. Can I move on to the next one? Next one I've got is the Environment Agency, which is the key thing is we don't have any objections to it. We acknowledge the approach and like the way we've done the habitat regulations, which was reassuring to read, Filippo, after Ian Cunningham's comments there. That was quite good. They got no critical comments on the vision or objectives, but they then talk about climate change and flood risk, as each considers major issues for the Bradford plan, which is fine. So then they talk about the Environment Agency recognise that climate emergency was declared by Bradford in January 2019 of importance, etc. But I haven't found any policies that promote the wider benefits of green-blue infrastructure could be reinforced, and supporting text use a clear justification. So I'm kind of hoping as we read on that there is. It says, you know, it says a lot of things what it should do, but they don't help by giving us clear guidance.
Can I just interject? Everything the EA's mentioned, you can ignore.
I wish you told me.
I mean, the matters that they've raised are all matters of strategic planning policy significance. They're the remit of Bradford. Sometimes neighbourhood plans have sections in them that refer to some of those topics, and put in policies that kind of echo what the district council would be saying. But really, they border on duplication. If you haven't put it in yet, there's no need to put it in now. The simple response is that these are strategic policy matters. That Bradford and national policies are adequately addressing them, and that the neighbourhood plan working group has not prioritised these issues within its neighbourhood plan. Matters would be considered in a future review, full stop.
Yeah.
Which is why they've said they don't need to see another version of it, because basically they're just saying that, you know, these are the things you could put in, belt and braces, but you don't really need to if you've not done it so far. If you introduce all these matters now, it'd be quite a significant addition to the plan. And so you can just say, you know, there's actually no requirement, you know, on neighbourhood plans to cover certain topics, and that's the case here. So we'll put in nice words, but that's the basic message.
Cutting to the chase, though, in the third paragraph in the first place, they've read it because they say they have no objections to it, and then what they've virtually done is cut and pasted a whole bunch of comments they make to any plan, including a local plan.
The only thing I thought was they do pick up, I think, that there isn't much mention of the river in the plan.
Yes.
So when we include the bits for canal and river trust around the canal. I don't know if we just want to extend that to
on page 3,
cover the river as well, because we do have the river
restoration.
on page 5.
not
Then.
much restoration, but just
Yeah.
acknowledging it as here it's an asset, it's a tourism asset, and it's part of our blue-green corridor.
Actually, you could turn the tables on them, couldn't you? And we could be asking them to look after their asset.
We could.
They are already.
Yeah, they talk about putting the inclusion of a specific river, watercourse or beck policy with a minimum of 8-metre buffer zones for all watercourses.
Yeah, strategic flood risk assessment.
Well, that's a well-known buffer anyway. There's no need for you to put that in your plan. Everyone knows about that. Who does development? It's not really necessary for you to do it.
It's just that halfway down page 2 in that first, the plan, vision and objectives, they do say in the environmental characteristics of Bingley, we note that reference is provided to the canal. However, there is no mention of either the river air or any other named watercourse, beck or tributary. So it might just be we just need to drop the river air in next to some of the canal things, just so we've got it.
Can I just say it is mentioned in Bing 9, the policy, as B, river air corridor.
And so, Harden Beck specifically mentioned was, I remember putting the 8-metre cross hatching across it all the way down. So I don't know which schedule it's in or which plan it's in, but it's in there, so I did it. So
I'll just respond to that and refer to bases in the plan where the river air is mentioned, and if there's an opportunity to put in further references to the river air, I'll do that, and then you can see how it's been dealt with. So basically, you'd have a response to the comment, and then a reference to where the plan has been amended to reflect the comments made. That's how it'll be presented, and then you'll have a track change version of the plan.
Yeah. What about the green infrastructure? They support the approach to green spaces and approach and associated infrastructure, which note in the links to wider networks. And the EA would, however, welcome that border scope is provided and stakeholder expectations are established. I mean, how does that apply to the bit of grass by the church or the bowling green in Crossflats or indeed any other recreation ground? Would welcome that border scope is provided and stakeholder expectations are established. That sounds like a lot of work and not really clear what they mean there.
Well, that sounds like going back to Tony's repairing and right, going back and that, talking to everybody who owns a bit of the riverbank.
So when I talk to neighbourhood planning groups and they say they have these local green spaces they'd like to designate, when I always just ask them, and do you have any management objectives for these green spaces? Because basically all the local green space does is designate it as a space that can't be developed on, as in applying greenbelt policies. And in most cases, the neighbourhood plan groups just don't have anything more to say on the matter. Some places do, but that's where they've usually got a little bit more capacity to develop sort of green infrastructure strategies themselves as town and parish councils. So that does happen, and it just goes alongside as a kind of a management strategy for the green spaces where they exist. What's your objectives for them? Having secured these pieces of land that will never be built on, what do you want to do with them? And that's the kind of some places have strategies and others don't. It doesn't have to be part of the neighbourhood plan. It's just something that people have alongside sometimes, and other places don't have them. So there's no expectation one way or the other.
Well, they're all mixed uses, our green spaces, aren't they? I was mentioned the bowling.
Every set will be different. Yeah.
Yeah. Some of them are part of a recreation council managed by Bradford Council. I don't know who manages the one by St John's Church, the Rose Garden, but that's one of our green spaces. Someone's going to cut the lawn there and manage it. But you're right, we just want to stop people building on it. We're going to keep them being green. Okay, but the rest of it is, talking about Bradford's responsibility, really, where they're talking about sustainable materials and construction and energy efficient measures for quick new builds. We wouldn't put that in it because that would stick out like a sore thumb and say, well, what have you got on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've got neighbourhood plans where they have sustainable energy and buildings policies, but you know, then they're let through by examiners, and the situations in which you have them is when the local plan is perhaps out of date and the policies in it are quite old, and a lot of these requirements are quite new, and so your policy is more up to date than the district's, but then it'll get overtaken anyway by the district's policy, and then building regulations in 2025 are changing. So they're usually just sort of a generic type policy, and you know, you haven't got one, so you don't need to introduce it now. There's no not needed. If you'd wanted one earlier, you could have had it, but yeah, there's no need to have it if you don't want it.
The other interesting thing about this is the header. It says Bingley Town Council via email, CC the City of Bradford Metropolitan District Council. So whether they did that by email or by letter, and who they sent it to is not known, but it was dated only 4 days ago. So, you know, interesting. If that's arrived on Ian Cunningham's desk, he's probably thought, oh, I need to respond. But anything else on the Environment Agency 7-pager then, people?
Nope.
No? Okay, move on. Next one in the pile is, in my pile anyway, Historic England. So again, this talks about listed buildings. Then it talks about Five Lies Locks. Given their Grade 1 status, they've just recently celebrated their 250th anniversary. We should put that in. Consideration could also be given to the following, but we haven't listed Grade 1 structures.
We haven't listed buildings.
No,
but
any of
again, we
No.
made
How often the Five Rise locks came up? People are really passionate about them at the moment.
They are. It does come up, yeah. Yeah. We haven't got the telephone box at Highfold Micklethwaite.
That was
In there. We've got post boxes. But you
know which one it is?
Philippa, what do you think about including the telephone box, and what would we do to it? Make it an asset, a protected asset?
Well, I assume we just do what we've done with other things and say
add it to the listed.
Keep it as is, but it's not going anywhere.
No, but then again, you'd have thought post boxes are not going anywhere, but unless we protect them, they could disappear. I mean, we've got the oldest post box in Bingley next to the Morrisons on Mornington Road.
But I don't think being a K6 phone box makes it particularly special.
When it says list entry, which list entry is that? Mean it's already listed? It must be.
Well, it's under the heading listed buildings.
So yeah, okay.
So it's already got.
They've already listed it. Yeah, okay. Right, let's move on. Myrtle Grove Town Hall. That's that one behind us, the old Shippy Town Hall.
Yeah.
So that is a listed building.
That's already protected.
It's already protected. Given that the parish has 6 Grade 2 listed, perhaps more consideration would be going to them, but we're not highlighting any of them. So could you deal with that, Lee, by a specific comment to say, no, they're all.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is, I mean, it's just information, isn't it? I mean, you go online, you put in Bingley, and then you can get a table downloaded of all of the listed buildings and scheduled monuments. If that would make them happy, you just include that in the appendix. Doesn't take that long to put together. It's just information, doesn't change anything. If that would make them happy, you could do that. A lot of neighbourhood plans include a schedule just because they feel they want to, but it's not required.
I feel the need
that would help, and I can do that. But it's best to have, if you're going to include a couple, then you have to include them all, really, don't you? So it's
100 plus.
Yeah, I think we've got enough non-listed buildings to stop. Because if we do that, we've got to go back to the other document, like the conservation areas. And indeed, the next one is conservation areas. They're saying it would be appropriate to review the conservation areas and include the conclusion of these reviews. Well, we would be a statutory review, but Bradford.
But what they're doing is they're suggesting that you take the lead and contribute suggestions to Bradford for the review of the conservation area appraisal document in your neighbourhood plan.
That sounds like a big piece of work, though.
It does, doesn't it? You'd need people who not got interest and skills, in the local community and know about this sort of stuff. It's a whole piece of work. So you haven't done it. You don't need to do it. I'm afraid at this point you're in delivery mode now. Unless there's something really, really good that you really, really want to bring in, a lot of these things can be batted away on the basis that you haven't prioritised them, or there's no need to do them because they're being done by others. So I think that's the stop position, unless you've got something you really want to take on.
Okay, Philippa, you had a point.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the only thing we could do would say we want to keep as is. We've not reviewed them.
No.
Brad reviewed them many years ago because they're way out of date, aren't they?
But if we start reviewing them, we're going to have to understand the types of stone being used and the windows being used and the way that has been. Yeah, and your skill set, wouldn't it?
It's a very technical job.
It is.
To assess for conservation area purposes.
Yeah, John Ackroyd is our local conservation.
It's a very technical job. Secondly, the conservation area updates were 20 years ago, 19 years ago, something like that. Given they are conservation areas, there shouldn't have been any change anyway. So I think it's very much a surplus requirement is my feeling.
Yeah.
Is that conserve or preserve, John?
Pardon?
Is that should there be preservation areas?
Okay, so then please interrupt me, and by the appropriate gesture if I'm moving too fast. Scheduled monuments and archaeology. So they're welcoming the prehistoric carved cut and ring rock in Greenhill Field, but felt it's more consideration could be given to the other scheduled monuments. So begs the question, if we're talking about 20 scheduled monuments and we've only got the one, what about the other 19? Because we've got asset number 19. So I guess we put that in there to stop the Sty Lane development.
I think that came from the Greenhill Action Group.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It begs the question: is should we not recognise the fact that if he's talking about scheduled, I presume it is a he. If he's talking about scheduled, they're already enjoying some protection again.
Yeah, you shouldn't have designated them as what you've designated them as if they were already scheduled.
Yeah. So if we check that the prehistoric carved cup and ring rock in Greenhill Fields is in the schedule and it's a schedule run by Historic England, we should probably delete it.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we were just
we were doing it for the purpose of
trying to just stop the development.
Yeah, there's 450 homes on that field, Lee, as a planning permission, but there's so many reserved rights and reserved. One of them is to replace a swing bridge, which is about £1 million. So Red Row have actually got it up for sale now. So they don't think they'll be building on it for 15 years. So I think that the group has the action group has stood down now, but I think that was one of theirs.
Yes.
So I'm quite happy to delete that. Views and vistas then. We acknowledge the importance of a landscape with gently undulating fields of wood and for a fine panel from all compass points. Well, okay, good.
Comment.
Yeah, good. Design guide. Now, this is again a sticky one because that's an ACOM document. They are welcoming it. That's it. It's a comment, isn't it?
The security is covered by the police response.
Well, and Bradford. That's it's planning permission, isn't it? So it says.
Well, yes, but it's more specifically covered by the police comment.
Yes, but I wouldn't want to be adding specific actual photograph of internal roller shutters to it at this stage.
I think you can visualise that fairly well.
Well, it's in the design guide as saying we want internal ones, and there's probably good and bad pictures in the design guide because it came from Macon, and it's the same document which Bradford are using as their design guide.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So then they talk about general advice and no more. So I think we can dispense with that document. Anyone else got any comments on it? No? Okay. Next one is Natural England.
Just one thing you said about Sky Lane, if that disappears for 15 years, does that mean they'll be looking for 450 houses elsewhere in Bingley?
Well, they're looking for 800 somewhere, so it would 450 of them would be there, but that was in the 800, I think.
Yeah.
Is it not? Philip has shaken her head.
No, I think they'd already taken them as.
They'd already taken them off. So the answer is probably yes.
But the numbers come down since then anyway, hasn't it? And we don't know where the number will be in a month's time.
No. Some of the planning stuff comes up in residents' comments as well.
It does. There was quite well, one or two people were interested in where the building was going to be.
So I think Natural England, again, there's not a lot because they say we note this, that, and the other, but here's a document that you might want to read.
Yep. That's a standard response they send to nearly all neighbourhood plans.
I mean, it got no specific.
No, so you've drafted the neighbourhood plan with foreknowledge of their comments, I guess, Lee. So you'd already taken account of them. Yorkshire Police then again, this is a standard document that he puts on every planning permission when they're statutory consultees for every shop building thing at all. So again, it's to do with planning, it's to do with house design, location of windows and active rooms. These are all to do with development.
Well, I read through everything and made a few notes, but for me, a lot of the things were what you pick up at the next stage when you were actually going to start doing something. You work through all those thoughts and ideas, wouldn't you? When you looked at your buildings and you looked at
but the buildings is Bradford. That's what I'm saying. It's all to do with we have statutory consultation on the building plan, and we're typically ignored anyway. But it's a side comment. But these comments also come from West Yorkshire Plan into Bradford every time a building gets planned. So Philip was on the plan with David on the committee has probably seen them before.
In much greater detail.
So we're talking about including the internal design of doors, windows, fences, and other physical structures to increase the difficulty for offenders. I don't think that's to do with the neighbourhood plan, to be fair. But what do you think, Lee? Or we dispense with that as well?
I think so. I think it's a policy that would be covered by secure by design type policies that Bradford have. You don't need it as well. We can, if you wanted it in earlier, we could add it in, but I don't think there's any need to put it in now.
No. Okay,
I'm sure I can find references in the design code to something anyway that will sort of cross correlate with it.
Can I move on?
Yep.
So I think that ends all the statutory responses, unless anyone thinks I've missed one. I've printed them from Teams, so it should be all there.
Well, I suppose there is a question, given I haven't got one. Is there someone else that should have done?
That's a good question.
It might have been.
I shall ask Eve that.
Sorry, say that again.
That's okay. Philip is making a point. If we know we've missed one from Bradford, is there some from another statutory respondee that we may well have missed by not getting it? And if so, how? Put an email list of who we sent them to. But if we've given them 8 weeks to respond and they haven't responded, my view was they shouldn't be considered.
Well, what do you think, Lee? Is there somebody that we should have?
You've got the big three. You've got, apart from Bradford, you've got the big three: EA, Historic England, Natural England. They're the ones you really want it from, and and that's it. I think if you've got those, then it's looking at the policy and the plan.
Okay, so if we move then on to residents.
Sure that you need it from.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Sorry to interrupt you there. So just moving on to residents' responses, including the survey. So if we go through the actual emails first, rather than the comments on the document, I only printed one. I only printed 3, and there was about 2 or 3 I didn't print because it didn't say a lot. They didn't say anything worthy of consideration unless anyone's. So I've got Jean Holgate's, Maggie Fleming's, and Marcus Rattray's as being substantive. The other ones weren't really of note, unless anyone.
There's
else.
one from a lady called Catherine Hope.
Yeah, the one that was
I
3
didn't-
pages.
Yeah, I didn't print that one. Okay, who?
That is
If
substantive.
someone's got that one, would you like to take that part of the meeting? One of you, either Lee or.
I'll do it because I've looked her up.
Oh, okay. You mean you've looked her up?
She does it all the time.
Oh, she's in. Actually,
Yeah, she's in the room
she's in
now,
the room
Lee.
now, Lee.
It's a member of public. So I probably need to give you an apology because on Teams your email was at the top and I went straight to the statutory ones and then the other residents were at the bottom, so I'd missed the one at the top, been off the screen by then. That is my excuse and I'm sticking to it.
You had your own folder. That's
Yeah.
what it was.
But-
You did, don't you?
Yeah. The good thing is, Catherine, we have people around the room who won't let me miss things. So yes, Lee, you're going to take Catherine's. Yeah, just bear in mind she's in the room.
Is she really? I
Yeah.
thought you were joking. Right. Well, I'll let Catherine introduce herself then, because I was just going to say that Catherine's quite a high functioning regeneration professional who's worked on some pretty important national schemes, and that if she's offering help, you should make contact. That's all I was going to say. But if she's there, let her introduce herself.
John has now moved over, so she's actually sitting down at the table now. She's been elevated. So, Catherine, you put 3 pages in. Lee's going to say we should listen to you. No, I've certainly been on what it was.
There was one in particular that I'm quite.
East West Balance.
I've got your paper.
All right, thank you.
So
They've
John,
made comments on it, all right.
Yeah, go for it.
so John,
Are you happy to hand it over?
1 second, can we have order? Lee, were you going to take us through it? Because John Decker is volunteering to as well.
You want me to go through what Catherine said and her response?
That's
Okay.
what we.
So it's basically, so Catherine's referred to the master plan, and you'll note that a lot of the critical responses from residents refer to the effect of traffic calming Main Street could have on through traffic from Crossrats through to supermarkets as one particular route, but in general traffic along the main road through the town centre. So one of the comments that Catherine made was obviously the need for traffic modelling to understand those impacts. I think in terms of the neighbourhood plan and not holding it up, we can refer to the fact that of course that will need to be done as and when more specific proposals come forward. I think of more interest was the comments around the gateways, and Catherine was suggesting that the station forecourt and the land adjacent to that is a gateway of sorts, because people who arrive by train would enter Bingley town centre from that means. And then importantly, in terms of the master plan, that the gateways are not just junctions. They actually have potential development sites alongside them, and referring in particular to the old police station off Ferncliff Street, and then the gateway at the other end of town. So it was really an idea that there was potential to, consider this strategically, and she was offering to discuss that with you using her experience, which has been on things like King's Cross in London, King's Cross Railway Lines, and Stratford and York, with some really big schemes. So she's obviously got invaluable experience, which you might want to listen to. So that's all I was going to say.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. So
Sounds good.
thank you for that, Catherine. So I can see why he looked you up by the stature of the email itself. But to pick up on the first one, which was pedestrianisation of Main Street, that was my idea, and I'm not going to die in the trenches over it. But I did recognise it would probably cost about £1 million by the time you start strengthening the roadway to go over the bridges. which are there, and so it actually impacts on the steps that are there. So that road, big lorries might not be able to make that turn, so you'd probably plough straight through Quaker Steps, which is a heritage site. So kind of the idea needs a lot more thought.
If I could just point out, that was looked at when the Market Square was done, and at the time down London somewhere they were building a new Tesco very close to the railway tunnel, and the building went into the railway tunnel.
Yes.
So working any way, shape or form round the Bingley tunnel,
yes,
all of a sudden became very much prohibitively expensive to do, because the tunnel is not deep.
No.
In certain places, if you go down about 2 feet, you can actually stand on top of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So that was looked at in the issue. You've also got to bear in mind that Main Street, even if you did want to do some calming or pedestrianisation, has to remain a high, wide, load route, because the Park Road Bridge was built too long.
Yeah.
So, that road will still have to take high, wide load.
Yeah. But the point about the tunnel was known when I made the suggestion, hence Quaker Steps go, because it has to avoid the tunnel. So it becomes impacting on heritage and expensive, and a change that probably Bingley residents wouldn't want. So when I made the suggestion, but I think the suggestion is akin to the aerial runway in Myrtle Park or the bridge over the River Aire. They're sort of things that you could look at in the future, which may or may not get traction. And the whole neighbourhood plan is a menu of options that the town council wouldn't necessarily do because they're high cost. Well, we could never spend £1 million of public money on traffic diversions in Bingley Main Street, even if we wanted to.
I think, isn't it? It's an acknowledgement, though, from us that Main Street, in its current guise, actually does split the town centre in two, and it is to its detriment, to the town centre's detriment. And if we could do something, not necessarily, it's our recognition that something really, if we could do something, it would improve the town rather than necessarily that's exactly what we're going to do.
It may well be that if the Metro Rail improves the tunnel over the next 13 years, and Bradford Council start thinking about pedestrianisation, because laws change. I doubt. David's shaking his head, but I doubt it too. But I don't have necessarily an issue of saying pedestrianising Main Street, even on a Saturday, might be a good thing to do.
Or making it more pedestrian friendly.
Yes.
Can I say something?
Of course you can, John.
I wrote the original draft for the town centre.
You did.
And the planning of it. And I knew about the tunnel situation. There is somewhere on the top surface a weight limit plaque. And so the idea of using Wellington Street as to form a circulatory system didn't really get any traction with me.
And not unless you shift the road to Mr. Tunnel.
But what I had in mind at the time was that the main road through Bingley is actually designed to become pedestrian friendly rather than vehicular friendly.
Yeah.
I came across that. I'm desperately trying to remember the name of the town. It was southeast of Stockport. When I entered it, I discovered they'd got 3 roundabouts through the town, no footpaths, no road markings. And as a consequence, everybody slowed down. All the traffic slowed right down because they weren't sure where they should be going, which direction and so on. Pedestrians could just wander at will. And that created a more safer environment, and it works. It worked there anyway. So that I saw that quite a few years prior to starting to draft the town centre wording. So the idea was really to look at some way of reducing the traffic weight through town. And not necessarily doing it as a one-way system, but as a slowing down of the traffic. So it's fairly well known, I think, that to slow traffic down, one of the best ways is to have cars parked on the side of the road, and it slows traffic down. It does through my village in Eldwick, when you get lots of cars parking there each side, everything absolutely fantastic. Yeah, it slows everything down, beautiful. So the whole point is that for Bingley Town Centre to have to start an environment that is going to attract people in, we need to do a traffic plan, just as you said. But I mean, that is something that's outside the remit, I would say, of Bingley Town Council. But it's something, it's an aspiration.
It's in the plan as an aspiration.
It is, yeah. So that was the basis of it.
Yeah. You got any comments, Catherine?
Well, I was just going to say my comments. I absolutely support traffic calming and improving the public realm space, you know, in and around Market Square. Absolutely. I think I was jumping 5 steps ahead in terms of the practical approach. You know, how is that actually achieved? So in terms of the plan as it's drafted, absolutely support that. And then anything in future around delivery or anything like that, happy to get involved in any conversations around that, really.
You're a Bingley resident then?
Yeah.
Yes, well, that's good to have you then.
Yeah.
Lucky to have you then.
So I moved here, maybe 5 years ago, something like that.
Okay.
So just after you'd done the original consultation. So I was really pleased to see this come out and happy to be of help in any way, shape or form.
Next one, I know there's the gateway comment. Was that the next one, guys?
Well, I mean, that came out of the ACON research and their suggestion of gateways. Again, that's really got to be part of the just the overall traffic strategy for the town centre. And it might be that there needs some sort of alteration of the routing round the corners and so on, but the principle of the gateways is fine. It sort of highlights the fact that you are entering Bingley. So I've got no further comment on that.
So they were talking in the master plan or about sort of signage and change of colour of tarmac and maybe some brickwork and things like that. So
well, yes, I was describing, and again, it's something I've seen down in Bath, where you actually have directional routing, not on signposts, but actually on the footpath. Whether it's painted on or I think in Bath it was in cobblestones, or
I think we're grinning at that because it's taken this probably 2.5 years now to get the route to the canal.
Yes,
5 ways long.
Yeah, so the signs I've seen, still not adequate, I don't think.
No, I think I'm in trouble for it because the paint's still on the pavement at the moment.
Yeah.
250.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, I think Catherine has picked up that I don't think we've possibly adequately covered is the station as a gateway.
No.
Because we've done, you know,
we've done the gateways.
We've done the gateways which are really for drivers, whereas one of the major entries to the town is.
But the only reference to gateways is in the master plan, which we've already acknowledged we really can't change because that's an ACOM document we paid for 3 years ago now.
But I'm sure there's other ways we could acknowledge that as a major arrival point, can't we?
Yeah.
I think the point that's being made, which we need to just acknowledge, and maybe it could weave it in the words without necessarily changing the policies, is the idea that the gateway is more than just the paving. It's about potential gateway development.
Yeah.
And when we talked about it on the southern side of the town centre, when we originally spoke about this, I think you were thinking at that time was that development had been permitted and was going to be built. But is it in its entirety? question mark. And then at the northern end, we did discuss whether it would, the sites up there, some of them are pretty tired. Could they be gateway development sites? And so in the longer term, you've got this idea that your gateways actually could also own and accommodate gateway style developments, which are, higher value and improve the quality of the town centre.
I think my comment on that was just really to almost maintain as much control as possible.
Yeah.
On the planning side,
it's difficult. We mentioned that maybe while you were sat over there, it was statutory respondee to Bradford, but they have the responsibility, the legal background, the onus, and they quite often overrule Bradford. Sorry, Bingley. But if we had a great, you mentioned the magistrates' court. That's got planning permission now for residential. So we took it out of the town centre boundary purely because it everywhere else maps around residential properties. Had it stayed as a magistrates' court, we would have kept it in. But as it went, it bore no relevance to the retirement homes up the top here, the other side of Liddell.
I think it's a case if something's got planning consent, doesn't mean that it's
no, it doesn't
going to be built out. That's what my comment was about.
No, it's up for sale now.
It could turn into something else. That's all.
It's up for sale. But how do we cover that off in the neighbourhood plan, given the fact it's got planning permission, the fact that it's up for sale could be anything else, and we've taken it out of the town centre boundary?
I think if you look further though, we never had the town centre boundary going further down because there is no retail.
No,
there,
it finished at that
so
junction.
It did finish at that junction anyway. Didn't go around the magistrates. I thought it went around the magistrates.
No, it went round the magistrates, but if you look where the magistrates was, just further south of there, there's a carpet shop. And so there's other retail down there that was never in
no,
the
they're never.
So it's just, what do we do really?
Yeah.
Catherine makes the point, it's not easy to get away from the station. There's up that little alleyway, which I forget the name of, to get to the main street. So, but to get to the canal from the station, you just go around the Pancake House, station master's house. Cross the bridge. Down the steps, and you're on the canal. So maybe just some signage there to show people where the various bits of Bingley are.
A finger post which says High Street, Canal, things like that.
Or maybe more of a map.
No, we still with the canal that whilst that's the entrance that most of us as locals will use, it's not an accessible entrance.
Oh,
yeah,
disabilities.
because
it's steps, isn't it?
Well, it's not really even steps, is it? When you end up by the side of Three Rise, it's
you can't get to the other side. You're on the wrong side of the canal for a start. And if you really want to be going down over
you're just down the side of the canal, and then you walk up to Three Rise, and then you can cross there.
Not a wheelchair.
No.
But if we're saying it's not accessible.
No, not down the steps.
So any signage we were to do for that, that's deliberately why when we talked about signage, we're going around the houses.
The other thing about the station is that is a conservation building, isn't it? And including the forecourt, the cobbles, and that. But Bradford don't seem to be inflicting the rules on the metro that they do on everyone else, because there are elements of that footpath which are tarmac. There are cobbles which are missing and tarmacked. And the
issue when something is conserved, it's conserved as is.
Yes.
So at that point in time,
right,
there were concrete bollards. It's not a retrospective that you've got to go back to something from Victorian age. It's because it has been conserved. So technically, they could replace tarmac with tarmac.
Yes,
that's how it's been conserved.
When was it actually listed? Because it wasn't listed not that long ago, was it?
No, this council put the papers in, I believe.
4 or 5 years, I do believe, because they tried to list the station master's house as well.
I think it was.
Although, that is in the conservation zone, as was the railway station. The station now benefits, maybe, or not, in some cases, from grade 2 listed status. So that then does make it more difficult for people to redevelop it more expensive.
But we could put an aspiration on there that we'd like to see some consistency, but whether we can find some words to make that a gateway. This is not in. It's not. We don't have that as a gateway yet. So, what do you think, Lee?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the listing entry for it.
Would just be the building.
Yeah, it's the whole station and everything about it. It's not like just a particular feature. So yeah, it would be within, you know, the someone should support, you know, objectives to improve the environs and the materials and the treatment of the station and its forecourt, to improve its condition and meet its listed building status more effectively.
Planning permission that was put in by Network Rail to redevelop the two derelict bits on the front.
Yeah.
And that was actually conserving and going back to putting the windows in correctly instead of the bits that are missing. So we would support that, I think, as a without prejudicing anything as a planning panel.
Yeah.
If it was more in keeping.
Yeah. My point though is it's in the master plan which we can't open. So can we add something in the neighbourhood plan, which
we can? The master plan is obviously a point of work, a piece of work fixed in time. We can respond to what's come out of consultation by adding in more words, building on what's in the master plan, you know, with words in the neighbourhood plan. So that's not a problem.
An aspiration to improve the signage to the rest of the town from the station, to improve the look and feel and originality of the station, and inflict pain back on Bradford to or Metro to get it right. And it's a point. I mean, the pavements around there is a mess.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there anything else Catherine mentioned?
Can't remember what I put in there now.
I didn't print it.
Go and have a look. Just remind yourself.
Thank you.
I don't think I've put anything rude on.
I think the point about the equality around the station gateway is that linkage up to Market Square as well.
Yeah.
That's really important for driving footfall up.
Yeah.
Finding.
But that again, that little ginnel is a nightmare when it's raining or whatever.
Whole...
Very slippery and quite dirty and decrepit.
Yeah.
There was one more point. One more point that's not been discussed, which is evident in a couple of other resident comments, which is that obviously, and I think something we talked about before, which is that you can create a high quality public space and environment, but you also need to have a focus on what's bringing people to the area. You know, so is it a visitor economy and tourism? Is it cultural and leisure activities? What is drawing people into these places that you're creating, and then help them stay and linger there? It's all bound up with John's work as well on the town centres that he did. So I think there's that comment about more in the neighbourhood plan or more in the background to what the town council's doing to give reasons for people to come to Bingley and be in the middle of Bingley and stay there.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of that is down to the parking and the shops, the variety of shops, the quality of the shops, and all that's driven from Bradford policies. We can make our design codes reflect the physical structure of shops, but not what's in the shops. You know.
Yeah, but if you put on an organic food market and it becomes a success, then within a couple of years you have a funky cafe and, you know, in a deli, and then you put on a festival, and then you have a gallery, and it kind of, there's the shops and the activities are kind of intertwined. The shops won't just appear if there's no vibe in the town, no reputation in the town for something. It's hard for businesses to establish themselves, but you can take the lead as a town council in you know, fostering markets, in fostering activities and festivals and fairs and, you know, one-off things that bring people in. I think that's what's being talked about alongside the bricks and mortar and the favourable business environment.
Yeah. Are you aware, Lee, of the 14.2 million that Bingley's been awarded in the Levelling Up award from the government?
Oh, you don't want to know,
Oh, sorry, you garbled there.
We've actually got that, so that's useful. What was it for?
Yeah, you haven't got it. Bradford have got it with the express, with the express permission or the express requirement that they spend it on what's listed in the building. And it's basically the pool and the market square, as far as I'm concerned. Philip has seen it in more detail, I think.
My understanding at the moment is they're re-looking at it because obviously everything's gone up since the bid went in, and I think we can probably say goodbye to any public realm improvements. Any monies that are there should be focused on the pool.
So I feel like I'm taking over your meeting. I spoke to Councillor Fricker, is it?
Yes.
About it, and she was going in to speak to the council officers like maybe a month later, but I pushed with her the importance of the linkage between the pool buildings and the market square. Actually happen or not, I don't know, but because as you say, like just
I just think within the envelope they've got that. Yeah. If it's enough to do the pool, we'll be lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have to spend the money in a given time as well.
Yeah.
They've got to start by 2026, early 2026.
And just for your information, Lee, Bradford are commenting that it's okay giving us capital, but what about the running costs? Because it's capital only, they can't use it for running costs.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
as I understand it, Bradford are trying to foist the building once they've refurbished it onto Friends of Bingley. And Councillor Forrest, who's in the room, kindly circulated something about Ilkley Pool the other day, which was sort of running cost of 280,000 versus an income of 28,000. So, it's an issue. So I think Friends of Bingley Pool are re-examining their business case.
But they have said, I believe, that they would want a community asset transfer.
Yes. What does that do to running costs?
That means they absorb them. Yes. It's not a Bradford problem.
No, it's not a Bradford problem anymore. And
it becomes a Friends of Bingley Pool.
Yeah.
It becomes a major Bingley problem.
And that's where Bingley Town Council came in about 3 years ago by saying we can't support that because it would come from the residents of Bingley. We'd have to do a full consultation, etc., because it would really mean the precept goes up. So yeah,
but it depends what Friends of Bingley.
So we know what you say about artisan markets and things like that, Lee, if we can do something. So
how much linkage is there with Bingley Arts, because that's not being mentioned, and they've got things all the time and fairs going on all the time. Over there.
Yeah,
we've done some sort of work together.
We recognise that Bingley Arts Centre is there. It's mentioned in the documents. But
but for bringing people into the
well, we don't support it.
Right, but maybe it's something to think about, because they have things going on all the time.
They do.
And holistic fairs and food banks, and there's all sorts of things going on there.
Well, they've certainly got films and shows
through the week. Yeah, I mean, they work really hard to keep busy all the time. They need to be busy all the time. So
yeah. But how will that relate to the neighbourhood plan?
In terms of being able to tell people what's going on, what activities are, and they do have crystal fairs and that sort of thing, Christmas fairs that might bring people into the town.
Christmas fair is run jointly between Chamber of Trade and Bingley Town Council, as was the Easter extravaganza.
Yeah.
So there is some work there. But
there might be more opportunity.
I'm struggling at the moment, Jan and David, because Bingley Arts Centre has their own Facebook page, their own website, and their own posters, their own advertising material. We recognise that it's there and it's an asset to the town and the documents. But I'm not sure whether we would, how we would actually help them do what they want to do, which is to fill the place.
No, I think for us it's probably more of us taking more of a holistic overview. I mean, we've already talked
What's the town got to offer?
in EMAC more about when we get our new website, do we publicise more of what's going on everywhere and have a calendar that people can look at, and just simple things like that, just to promote what, because people do constantly say there's lots actually going on in about it.
Yes.
It might be that just purely by publishing a community calendar that people could put their events on, we make great steps towards that.
I think that would be great.
Yeah, I think there's lots of things we as a council can do with that more holistic overview of what's going on in Bingley and pushing what's going on in Bingley, as opposed to it being in the neighbourhood plan per se. But I take your point about pushing the visitor economy and tourism, which historically haven't been our strongest suit as the town council, and we've regularly underspent on that, haven't we?
Okay. Shall we move on? Yeah. As I said before, I was pointed out that I'd missed Catherine's email. I only had three: Jean Holgate, Maggie Fleming, and Marcus Rattay, and Catherine's. So did I miss any? There was another couple, but I didn't see them as making any comments.
I don't know whose this was, because there's no name attached to it, but it was reference to section 9.
Okay.
Remember? I don't know if that's on your.
I'll have a quick look at it.
Yeah. I mean, the comments made. First of all, Lee, the comments made that since we did the first draft, there's then been the 2021 census report.
Yes.
And the commentary is that we should update the neighbourhood plan.
That's Marcus Rattay's.
Right, okay, fine. And the commentary is that we should update the information.
Yeah, well, let's take that one first then, as you've already.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, thank you.
So Lee, Marcus Rattay, he's saying that we've provided old data, and there's now data from 2021 available, and we probably should go through the document update. Which won't.
Well, if you remember, I finished work on this in January 2023,
right,
and it took the whole of 2023 to get to the Red 14. Right. And in that time, the census information came out. Local nature recovery strategies have been progressed. Biodiversity net gain regulations come in. MPPF has been updated twice. So there are lots of references in the plan that need to be updated, and it would make sense to put in the most recent census data into those relevant sections. I think that can be done. It's just for context, but it is important.
I think before it goes to an inspector, it should be done, I would guess.
But the point that this gentleman is making is that we should put the new data in based on the 2021 census, and then if there's any update that's needed on the interpretation and an analysis. Now that operation will take quite a while to do, won't it?
The main matter that it would affect would be the housing needs assessment, because if you recall, that is quite old. And it's also based on 2011 data. Having said that, you would be unable to update that at the moment anyway, because the grant system's closed down. So there's nothing you could do about it until the grants open up. But yeah, I'm not sure your housing needs information at this point, given how long ago the housing needs assessment was produced. Let me just check the date of the original housing needs assessment. Was it 2018 or 19?
It'll be 4 years, yeah,
Yeah,
easy.
yeah. 19.
And we did have it updated about a year after it was first written. So that's
January 2020. So it's 4 years old with a census in between.
If we open the door to that, Lee, that requires ACOM to do it again, doesn't it?
It would. I've got other neighbourhood plans in similar situations. They're obviously very reticent to go back and unlock that and do that all over again.
Would it
Bradford
be
will probably still regard it as okay for a while, but not much more than a year. That'd be 5 years old.
It get overtaken by the Bradford one anyway in the local plan.
No, because the whole point of a neighbourhood plan housing need assessment is that it provides a finer grain look at your local area. So the base point is the Bradford wide housing needs assessment, and the NPPF allows for neighbourhood plan housing needs assessments to nuance those district wide needs with the finer evidence that you have on local level produced by an ACOM housing needs assessment to a standard methodology that most authorities recognise as robust. So
Okay.
the only issue is that yours is both before the pandemic and now approaching, well, it will be 5 years old by the time you finish. So you could carry on and just let the chips fall in the interest of just getting this thing done. Or in the course of the year, you could update the information, and it would, but you wouldn't be able to go to Reg 15 and submit the plan for the next stages until that was done, if you were going to do that.
I think part of the problem is absolutely that we are working in a continuously, gradually changing environment anyway of information and census and so on. So what might be up to date now, by the time the neighbourhood plan fully published, approved and so on, things will have changed a little bit anyway, probably. Would it not be more kind, so to speak, to make a reference to the fact that the information might have changed over the period of years, but substantially remains the same, or something along those lines?
What was it?
Because I can't really imagine us going through all the machinations again of looking at new figures and interpreting them and so on.
I'm wondering what Bradford would say when we go to Reg 15, even what they say when we provoke the Reg 14. But then you've got the inspector as well.
Yeah.
Who, you know, whether they say, and if we do change it all, even though it doesn't change any of the interpretation and analysis, which the professor is highlighting, whether we'd have to do Reg 14 again.
Thank you, Jeff. Do we just look at updating section 9 and look to see if our demographic has changed drastically? Because I suspect it's not. I suspect, if anything, Bingley's probably got slightly older.
Yeah.
And that's probably it. In which case, most of what I think we've concluded would remain the same.
Yeah.
We haven't seen massive spates of house building other than the retirement apartments.
I think for your social and economic characteristics and general analysis, that's right. The housing needs assessment is based on population characteristics and a projection of the population based on the most recent data through to the end of the plan period. And then housing need is based on looking at what the population is and will be, and assuming that you want to help it stay the same. It's then open to you to have a strategy to change the future. So if you see a general drift to an older population under occupying larger houses, which is often the position, then your strategy would be to encourage more family housing and more young people into your area so that you don't just drift into an old age community. That's the general picture that most neighbourhood plans find themselves in. I'm not saying you're like that because you're a bit bigger, but the other dimension of the housing need is not just the demographics and the housing stock. It's the affordability and the income. So that does change over time and will have changed quite a bit since 2018.
Yeah.
So that's the basis on which your housing needs assessment becomes out of date.
But I think
your ability to say that things are affordable or not.
Actually, is the same. Bingley's not got any more affordable, has it?
No.
Certainly not.
So I think what I appreciate it's out of date, and I don't know what we do with it. But we either just plough on, which I think we probably have to.
Seems the best option, isn't it?
I don't think we can open the door to a new housing needs assessment because that will include.
But we might need to do something in the background for, say, the inspector to say it's not in there, but we have done some background. It's not changed, or it's continued on that same trajectory.
Yeah. What do you think, Lee?
I think that's fine. I mean, I think some of the stuff in your neighbourhood plan is quite old because it's been going on for quite a while, pre-pandemic, and then Bradford's plan will be taking shape. I think if you could address a lot of this by ensuring that you commit to keep this plan under review and potentially, undertake an earlier review of this plan than you might otherwise have done, because in acknowledgement of the fact that things have changed quite a bit since a lot of the technical work underpinning it was done.
That sounds a sensible approach, doesn't it? Yeah, sounds a very practical approach.
Does that in reality mean that once the plan is approved, we need to schedule and pay for another housing needs analysis? Because once we have a neighbourhood plan, we wouldn't get a grant to get a neighbourhood plan, so we'd have to fund that ourselves. And
we won't get a grant anyway.
No, so we won't get a grant anyway. So we'd be funding another housing needs assessment. What do we do with it?
No, you do get a grant for a review of your neighbourhood plan. I mean, obviously, if you did it the next day, they'd be asking questions. But when Bradford moved their plan forward and is at a more advanced stage, and in recognition of the fact that some of your technical work, was started in 2017? Some of your technical work started. That's really old now, and the world's moved on. So I think, it would be a reasonable case to start a review once Bradford's plan has reached a more advanced stage. And you should, if the system of neighbourhood planning grants is still in place at that point, who knows, then I've got clients who are reviewing their plans that are 5 years old. So
I think the consensus, Lee, was that we plough on regardless, note the comment, and say we're going to review it when the local plan comes out. Yeah. Moving on to the next set. So section 11.1.4.f, change to reflect the toilet was built. Can't help but agree with that. It's here, isn't it? So the next one though, 11.1.6a, about the congestion around Bingley Grammar School. I kind of agree with that. I don't know where the comment says, which says it seems anti-inclusive. I think what we're saying there is the school is a congestion pinch point, and we could do something about it. But what we can do about it is, again, it's an aspiration. It really comes down to how Bradford has designated the roads with yellow lines and what the police are going to do about the parking infringements and parking on the pavement.
And if there's going to be more development there on the opposite side.
Yeah. So I don't know what you feel about an unnecessary and political point, which seems to be anti-inclusive. We're saying it's a problem on the main road, aren't we? But
yes, I couldn't understand that comment actually.
What do you think? Anyone else? Bradford, we've made a comment about it. Are you looking it up, Philip?
I am.
11.1.6a. I wouldn't have thought it would be a political point, because we're a non-political organisation that have
politics out of it.
Yeah.
So it says, in addition, lots of other services are under pressure, some of it significant, as at May 2022.
Oh, sorry.
Bradford Council are increasing provision at Bingley Grammar School for a further 150 pupils and 24 semi-pupils, which will increase traffic congestion in the area. So I suppose
which it will.
Statement of fact, isn't it?
it's a statement of fact. More pupils, I think it equals more traffic.
I think the key point about this comment is if ambitions around walking, cycling, road safety are achieved, there's a non-problem. But we have to, one's predicated on the other, which we have to achieve. And then there's some other residents talking about you're not going to be doing any cycling in Bingley because of the hills, and we need to improve the walking and things like that. But it's a lot of the comments are cross-functional, if that makes sense.
I think all we were trying to do is highlight some of the pressures on services of the school, and that's the road network, and we've also got the doctors in there, which has obviously got worse since we wrote it anyway, but they are shutting down.
All right, so I don't know what you feel about that. Lee, am I correct in saying you have to address every one of these points in the post-survey response document?
Yeah, I will do. And if there are different points, on different subjects, I break them up and then reference who said it, but with a reference system. So it's fine. I'll just put the point and then create a response. And if it feels reasonable to address something, I'll post some wording. And if not, I'll just rebut it.
We bet the resident is hoping this particular point is removed, but I think the way Philip has read it there, I think we should leave it in.
Can't understand. Understand.
The 20-mile-an-hour zone to be introduced through Bingley. You live on Park Road and wants it to move up to the zebra crossing. The 20-mile-an-hour zone is something which Bradford are on with at a snail's pace. And we have seen cross-action plans. Nothing's been done, but it really only is a movement of signs. So, a movement of the sign from halfway up the high street back to Island Bridge, for example. Island Bridge.
I would just say in response to that, this is not a matter that's being addressed by the neighbourhood plan. And then if you want to say anything extra, I'd say however. And then if there's further action the town council is taking on traffic management in Bingley, then I'd reference it. But in terms of the neighbourhood plan, you don't have to respond on that point because it's not really part of the neighbourhood plan.
Okay, excellent. Good. Okay,
agreed.
Okay. So we're talking about outdoor gym in one of the parks and attractions, bouldering wall being part of the ambitions. Well, John wrote most of the ambitions, didn't you?
I did.
So they're just examples, aren't they?
They were just suggestions of trying to keep people in the town, of things for them to do, play with, whatever, challenge them or something. Again, a bit like Catherine has mentioned, it needs really, it almost needs a town centre manager actually, or a team to look at doing something like that and devising areas of interest, keeping people there, fountain, play bits, whatever.
Again, the rest of it is talking about employment and retail, which aren't under our control.
No.
We could influence them, but before about artisan market shops, but talking about a commitment to co-working space development, which would help attract and retain younger residents, digital nomads. But how could we make a commitment to co-working space development? We manage what we manage, which is very little allotments to speak.
I think the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, thinking forward to your review, many years from now, when you have, the idea that you might want to support something, you can always allocate land for that purpose. But of course, then you need to go through the process of finding the sites and willing landowners and setting the criteria and understanding that there's a market for what you think you're going to promote. But yeah, you could do that through the process of allocating sites in your neighbourhood plan. That's what people do all over the place. So if there was an urgent desire for office space, co-working space, combined with cafe facilities and what have you, and creche and stuff, then that sort of thing happens all over the country. In bigger cities often, and you could allocate that in your neighbourhood plan if you had a willing landowner and interest. So you can do it. It's just you've not, and there isn't a need to at this point. You haven't done it, so something you can note and keep under review for any future work on the neighbourhood plan. Just leave it at that.
Okay.
Or you could engage in when I don't know if businesses ever beat the path to your door to discuss things about Bingley. That's the sort of thing you could discuss with them. So that's what the aspirations chapter was about, because inevitably the neighbourhood plan is a planning document, but of course it's throwing up all manner of other ideas that are not strictly going to be relevant or dealt with in this neighbourhood plan, but you might not want to lose them. So within the challenge centre chapter, those bits that John wrote in that section, and also within the aspirations sort of section, you've got a means of registering these things and logging them and then putting some sort of action against them, so that you don't lose all the good ideas that are coming out.
You're going to pick that up in your review of the document then?
Yeah, I will put things in the aspirations chapter and in this town centre section if they're relevant there.
It also applies to the following paragraph, isn't there, about the table, about improving the town as a leisure destination for visitors from Bradford district and beyond, closer collaboration with Bradford Council, making the most of Bradford 2025. You know about Bradford 2025 as a city of culture for that year, and
I heard about that.
Yeah. They're bringing in music events and Myrtle Park events and art events and pop-up events. It's a substantial investment of money and time. We're aware of it, but we're not specifically been asked to contribute to it. We're just keeping an eye on it. But they're talking about heritage trails, arts trails, a year-round programme. But again, that's all being run. There are opportunities for Bingley around family-friendly activities, but they've been managed by the Bradford 2025 team.
Well, there is quite a lot of community work going on.
Yeah, it's not led by us though, or our neighbourhood plan. It's being run by the City of Tomorrow Bradford 2025 team. So I don't really think we need to change our aspirations in that area. But we always have close collaboration with Bradford Council when they allow us to. I think that's a point. Okay, so there's nothing that we need to change in that particular paragraph then, guys. The town centre improvement, again, it is underutilised. And I would have some greater thinking about the offer, but I'm not quite sure what we can do about it.
There's reference to it in the
council strategy document
anyway.
There's one for Jan, based on sound research and also in the 15-minute neighbourhood movement.
What?
First mention.
15-minute neighbourhood.
Yeah, 15-minute neighbourhood. Yeah, we're waiting for that one to come up.
Did you look at the culture is our plan?
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't know. I've read everything that was sent through. I can't remember which bit.
I think he's asking about repurposing vacant retail space, nighttime activities. Again, that's not in our gift.
No.
And I might be coming across as somewhat negative here, but I'm trying,
I
I'm
think,
trying to get this
no,
plan
no,
published.
no.
exactly,
to do
no,
both.
I understand completely your position, and
Yeah.
but I think Lee's point was a good one around,
If it comes
you're
up.
actually flushing out a load of really good comments here from
Mm.
people, and if there's anything that's, within the town council's gift to pick up on any of those in future, I think that's a really positive thing.
New voices as stakeholders, younger residents, we had them all banging on the window this morning. The last meeting we had here.
Just on that, I
So
think
there is something on I think the idea about repurposing. So the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act included provisions to force the letting of empty shops in town centre high streets with a clear defined high street ban that would apply. So you could see that as a circumstance in which
How do you ever force a letting, Lee? Yeah, I think you
well,
just...
they've got a whole system of provisions. I haven't read the regulations in detail, but there's a whole part of this act dealt just with that. That's going to come in, and they're working up the regulations now.
Okay.
If they've not already done it.
Guess you've got to have a willing shop taker if you're going to force a letting.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's based on like a sort of an auction type situation, or what. But basically, you could imagine that you might end up with things there that you either like or don't like, depending on who's interested. So it is relevant to you, is the point. It doesn't mean you've addressed it in the neighbour plan or have to, but it's something you might want to be aware of if Bradford ever decided to utilise those powers in Bingley town centre.
Yeah. Okay, so
Steve, if I can go
You
back
can.
to a comment I was trying to make, it's actually quite sad to see on the responses that we've got. It's middle-aged and onwards. The younger population have not interacted.
no.
And at the end of the day, it's going to be their town. And to me, that is a bit of a deficit on when we sat around looking at actually that younger voice just hasn't been interacting, and for whatever reason I do not know, but it's not, it needs to be addressed somewhere.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, no one under 18, no one 18 to 29.
Middle-aged onwards.
Yeah.
Is that not normal though?
Is
Are they not busy just having fun at the moment?
it is normal.
I think it's older.
Yeah, well, young kids in town.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But they're busy just having fun, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay. But that, with that comment, David, I mean, we can put Marcus Rattus's comments to bed, and Lee's got a handle on it, and we can move on. Yeah. So Jean Holgate's my next one, as it comes up in the pile. Really, Jean's coming from Greenbelt area based on the location of residents, and talking about substantial brownfield sites, which the Heights Lane Greenbelt Group have identified in Bingley. But we recognise in the housing needs analysis and other documents that brownfield sites tend to be apartments, which doesn't suit young families. So we wanted a mix. And therefore brownfield sites won't necessarily be the answer and the cure-all for all our ills.
No, we should be building higher.
Yes.
What's the high rise?
Which cuts across our views and visions.
Which I would have to say that, like,
she
quotes Leeds as an example, but I know so many buildings in Leeds where the residents have got problems because of the cladding issues that tends to go with semi-high-rise or mid-rise buildings.
Well, and our beautiful views and vistas. If we start banging up high-rises in Bingley, but again, it's not for us to do that. That would be Bradford, and we would object strongly to it.
Well, they've just pulled 3 down, haven't they?
Yeah, we just demolished 3.
I suppose if you look at the issue, actually building smaller, older person type apartments on brownfield, in theory, should release some of the bigger, very unoccupied houses within the area, but you can't guarantee that because folk move to Bingley and fill them up rather than locals filling them up. So if you provide 200 retirement, a chunk of those come from Bingley. It's a chunk of family homes that can be available.
Yeah,
but we can't dictate who's going to fill them.
No.
Well, they've already built some, haven't they, down the road then, I mean, and they haven't filled them yet, but.
the highlighted bold paragraph at the tail end of the email is emphasising the Bingley to keep its green spaces. Oh, I think we've done that. For the planet and the physical mental health of all its residents. For whatever reasons we've done it. We went through the green spaces. We spent a lot of time on green spaces. We had a lot of identified ones. We had over 100 at one time, but they were grass verges and roundabouts. So we cut that down to a manageable portion that we could get a handle around. We talked all about rejuvenating the town centre by maximising the available land. Well, it is. There was talking about brownfield sites and recyclable office buildings. There was a couple who came to the open day who wanted to get their arms around the old mill down Gasoline Alley and do that up, and were seeking our help in doing that. But again, they were going to join the neighbourhood plan, but they haven't. The neighbourhood plan working group, but they haven't yet. But there are people in Bingley who are looking at brownfield sites and recycling office buildings. So I think our plan from the design code and the master plan and around that cover requirements.
I think we've covered off most of it because, I mean, the planning committee all know the general concerns, which is no release the green belt. We can't no release the green belt because that goes against Bradford's policies. But we have said minimise release, maximise brownfield. We have said we'd support residential upstairs of shops and office buildings. She obviously is now wanting us to build higher densities. I'm not particularly in favour of that myself.
No,
but I get where she's coming from. But I think we've gone as far as we can with most of it with what's in our gift.
But Jean's recommendation for the addition does not talk about high rise, or it just talks about rejuvenating by maximising the available land, and by that she means banging it higher. But I don't see the need to put that sentence in there because we've got it covered in numerous.
I think we think it's covered.
Yeah. Everyone agree with that?
I don't know what Lee's view was.
Lee, got a different view?
No.
Okay. Maggie Flemings then. Good to meet us. Now Maggie has actually written to Bradford. She's got an acknowledgement from the local plan team and has repeated it to us. But I'm not sure we could do much about this. That he's talking about Castlefields Road being the employment site. We agree. She's commenting that she wants to make a comment on the site regarding the heritage aspects, which are talking about the mill, the cotton mill, the mill owner's house, the mill waste, and the downflow. The riverway is not very prominent at Castlefields. The fall of the bread wheel of 9. Also 9.5 feet was achieved ingeniously by digging a tail goit in a tunnel. All very interesting. It talks about 4 recommendations about new buildings to have a buffer between the mill waste and the building. That's not in our gift. That's Bradford's.
But I think she did speak to me about this at the first open day, and from our perspective, I think what we could do is look at where it is. I don't know if
and add it to our list of historical.
I think that's what she thought might be in our gift to do, but I don't know if it's listed already. We'd have to check on that, what is listed down there. And because I think if it's something we did just add, there's no local heritage structure, that's in our gift to do if it's not already covered by other protections.
We would have to go through the same process that we did for all the other buildings and structures of historical interest, in as much as the tick sheet, the capture of data, and then the understanding of, you know, has it been destroyed already? That was one of the key things where we took some of the buildings out. So we can certainly go through the process of that. Is that a significant change, Lee, adding another item to the list of historical buildings and structures?
I think we could try and get away with it not being.
Okay. Right. So I think then we as a council will go and look at that and follow the same process that we did for all the others, and come back and talk about it at the next meeting. Talks about vistas. The last one is a vista of any new building design should be considered when viewing from the River Aire as well as from Castlefields. Well, that might require a change from the views and vistas document, which are talking about major viewpoints around the valley rather than in the town. There is one in Myrtle Park, which looks towards the southeast. As it was a couple in Myrtle Park that look towards the southeast and into the woods, but we've got nothing in the town or on Castlefield. So I'm not sure whether we could or should add another vista.
I think we need to go and have a look around it.
Yeah, we need to go and have a look to see whether or not we're going to add something to the views and vistas. But it's talking about when viewing, so that I think she's talking about viewing the mill race and the mill from the River Aire as well as from the Castlefields.
Yeah.
So, but if that is the case, we'll pick that up in the same review. So it's not only a review of the heritage buildings; it's a review of the views and vistas. Yeah. Or
it's a review of that site.
It's a view of that site, but I don't think, having thought about that, and that actually listen to what I've just said, I don't think we would include the views and the vistas, because if we add it to the heritage buildings, it's covered from wherever you. Yeah. Yes. Anyone else? Or can we move on?
Feeling a bit hopeless.
No, I think I've got that. Okay. So I don't have any more emails in my desk in front of me, unless anyone else has got a concern. We're in agreement with that. We can turn. What about Pottingley? Yes, that's after the. Okay. We're still.
I'm afraid I've got to go in a minute. So if you want to do Cottingley now.
Yes.
And then I've actually reviewed all of the survey comments, and I could send you the writing on those if you wish.
Are you saying we don't need?
I don't think you need to. There's nothing in them substantive. I think the only thing you really need to decide is your headline response to all the carping about cycle lanes. If you decide on your headline response to that, then that can flow through a lot of the responses to the comments. But in relation to Cottingley, do you want me just to outline what I wrote in the email that I sent?
Yes, please. I have my own view at Cottingley, having spoken to one of our councillors who lives, and he's been to the Cottingley Historical Society, and a couple of the members. Sorry, Lee. Am I?
I'm sorry.
So
I think I was going to state in the note anyway.
Whilst a couple of the members would support it and were disappointed that wasn't in there when we explained that we couldn't get any data to put in there, so because it fell short of the requirement, we deleted it. They've worked hard to add it to it, but the rest of the residents of Cottingley special character area have then asked a lot of questions about, if you put it in, what does it mean to me? What does it mean to my house? What does it mean to my insurance? What does it mean to my repair and refurbishment? Raised alarm bells at the local historical society meeting, which we have to say that might require them to go round the Reg 14 again if we put it in, because of the.
I think that one would. I think that would. Yeah.
So if we don't put it in now, would we then be saying 5 years down the line at the review we could put it in, because at that point we'd have to do
another review.
another Schedule 14 consultation.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to, if Bradford agree, if you wanted to put it in now, you might, anything else that you want to change, you might be able to just do a limited 14 consultation. It would take the time it takes, but you wouldn't have to all bells and whistles like you did with the previous one. But if you decided to say that despite what's been said and despite the document that was provided, I don't really think that's the basis for designating the special character area. So a lot more work would be required to identify the character area, to identify what the features are that make it special, and then to determine that substantial proportion of them remain in place on the buildings in the area. And then you'd need to set out, well, what is it that we're seeking to protect, maintain, enhance? And that's where people then learn how it affects them when they're making changes to their house.
Yeah.
So it's a fair amount of work, and it's probably quite contentious for people who are living in it. You experienced a little bit of that on Milner Fields. It'd be probably more because there's more people living in this character area. So my advice would be to leave it for this time.
I don't think Brad,
pick it up next time.
The simple reason that it came out of a conversation where Bradford are trying to change the designation of an informal car park right in the middle of the designated area, and the residents are trying to give some sort of protection to that to stop Bradford selling it off as a car park and putting £1 per minute on it, which Bradford are intent on doing. So if we were to ask Bradford, could we do that, and they would write back and say no.
It's not a big car park.
We'd know why.
I parked there a few days ago.
Yeah, no,
I just had a look round.
I get it, but that's where it came out of.
Yeah, right.
It's a protection.
Right.
It's a protectionist issue from that car park point of view.
Maybe it's a point to review it in a future date, providing that the residents of Cottingley have really done the homework and provided the information that we need to put in, and it's down to them.
Yeah, another meeting before Lee has to.
Another meeting then. We certainly got some actions coming out of this meeting, so we do need to agree another meeting before we take it to full council. And it's really just cost, which we just agreed. Go and look at the station and things like that.
I'm afraid I've got to go. So if I send you my review of the comments with suggested responses, then at least you can review that on the survey responses. If I'll send you that in the morning, that's okay.
Yeah. Agree with another meeting before we take this to full council, just to finish it off.
Yeah, I think it makes sense, because then you can look at the track changes.
Have you got any suggestions, Eve? I think in a month's time it's a standard cycle.
Less. Week.
14th of May. Hey?
It's the next planning meeting.
Okay.
14. Do the week after.
21st of May.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Next week.
No, we've got to go and do some work. Yeah. No, I know you want it done. I think you're here for the duration, John.
So I've got to go. So 21st of May is fine with me. Okay. Right. See you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Would you mind if I disappeared as well? I've come straight from work.
You're a member of the public. You could go. You could have gone.
Make me feel welcome.
We welcome your input, and I'll be talking to you about joining the Neighbourhood.
Yeah, I thought that might be the case.
You put your head above the parapet.
I know, that's it. Honestly, if there's anything I can help with, not just in relation to this, anything in future.
Yeah.
Let me know.
We will be on the telephone too.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So bear in mind what Lee's just said about the detailed comments. I'm not convinced we need to go all the way through them. Let's start off with the comments though, because we've already covered off car parking, we've already covered off cycle lanes, but I'm not a big fan of cycle lanes. I'm not a big fan of Bradford cycle lanes. I'm not a big fan of cycle lanes between Bradford and Leeds, but cycle lanes seem to be something that Bradford are doing, and I don't think we're
taking away.
And they're
taking away all the Wakefield Road.
Yeah, but you know why? Because they're putting them back.
What?
The ones at Wakefield Road, Lynn and I drove there the other week, and we spotted they'd all gone because I was telling Lynn to change lanes because they were coming up, and all the bollards are gone, and there was no need. So I actually Googled it while I was a passenger, and they put those in at a cost of £80,000 for COVID. Now, why you needed cycle lanes for COVID, I have no idea. It was just befuddled my brain. But the comment was that there is a bigger, wider road development going in that area, and cycle lanes will be part of that fixture. So they're coming back, unfortunately. But the councils do have an astonishing ability to waste money. I couldn't help but tick the box. Ridiculous push to net zero is a complete utter scam. Couldn't help but tick the box. There's loads of comments on that particular one I agree with, but the cycle lane one, I don't think it's in our gift to. We're promoting cycling, but we're promoting cycling on existing roads from Micklethwaite to Cross Flats, and I agree with the comments about the hillsides on the river where don't add.
That's exactly my point. Straight through is a
If you
great
come- if you
idea,
come
but
down-
park roads are ridiculous.
Yeah, if you come down, you've got to go up again. So you have to get like on a racing bike, really.
Well, I've never seen anybody out counting the actual cyclists, and
No.
there's been no measuring of what's required. I only ever seen about 3.
Yeah, but it's a government initiative, isn't it? They're paying for it. The government. It's not
a global initiative.
It's not Bradford coming out of Bradford's pocket. I believe they get grants.
Yes,
that's the problem. They get grants for projects that we think are absolutely useless.
Yeah.
But of course, they've got to spend it on the project that's been allocated.
That's been allocated.
Lose it.
You don't have to apply for the grant.
No,
They're not necessarily applied there. It's probably some of that been hoisted on them.
But I think there's a comment here about stopping reversing the ridiculous calming measures from Poppy House towards Neighbourhood. I agree with that, and I think that next time Bradford councillors bring a big plan to us and say we want your comments on this plan before they do it, which they did. They actually brought an A4 document out on which I think we as a council, having known what we know now, we would dive into it in much more detail and go down there.
Are you saying that this council is complicit in the carnage that's out there?
We're complicit in the fact we didn't challenge it as strongly as we should.
Showed us what they were going.
They showed
the bus lanes and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Absolutely.
From my reading of what was circulated when they first started, the iteration that has appeared
It's different.
bears no real resemblance to it with all the milled out and some of the other stuff.
But Lee has written a response to it, but I don't think we can stop or reverse the ridiculous traffic calming measures. I don't think we're ever going to achieve that. So I think Lee would have proposed that.
All I could say is I'm glad they made the new cycle lane a car width, because I found myself driving in the cycle lane by mistake the other day, and I'm just glad my hubcaps were saved.
Yeah. Could be one of those guided buses. Could be like a guided bus for you.
That was awful.
Did you let go of the steering wheel? But the comment about negotiating with public transport providers, that's in there for aspirations. The library is in there as an asset we need to preserve. Pedestrianising in Main Street we've already talked about. 20 miles an hour zone speed. They're not going to put speed bumps in there. They're only going to change the signage. They might put a bit of cross hatching down by the fire station, but not much more. Parking charges we're already writing to them about and had it rebuffed. I don't know whether you non-councillor members know that. We wrote to Bradford Council saying that we want 2 hours or 3 hours of free parking to help promote businesses in Bingley, to get some footfall, and they said no. We also wanted to get rid of the post 6 o'clock, and they said no.
Incidentally, in Belden Town Centre car park, there is no post 6 p.m.
Oh, why don't we bring that up at full council, David, when are we due to discuss their response, or have we already discussed it?
Yeah,
I think we agreed to write to them. I'm not sure we've discussed their response.
yeah, it can be discussed at the next meeting.
I've just been to the dentist today in Shipley. They get 2 free hours parking down
Yeah.
the road. So.
Yeah, but this letter did say they're trying to standardise across the borough. So presumably Bowden might be getting a letter from them to say we are doing that.
But that's car parks, it's not
Street, roadside.
Yeah. Well, they've written back to us and say there is no restriction on roadside parking in Bingley, which if you can get a space, there probably isn't.
Oh, you're talking car parks.
Yeah, car parking. Yeah. Okay. The pedestrian bridge across the Aire to St Ives. I got a sense of agreement with that, but again, it was us saying aspirationally it needs a lot more work, and who's going to fund it? So that comes under the same thing as a ski lift.
Yep.
Thanking us for doing the detailed work, which is good. Thank you. Bingley Parish area is already overcrowded against mass building of new houses. Well, we're not mass building of new houses. There is a allocation which we've got to abide by. We have a commitment.
Bill.
Yeah. We are supporting green spaces, and we are encouraging local wildlife. We have wildlife tracks within the neighbourhood plan. We're not banning cars from Bingley.
I don't know where that comment arose.
But it's probably from pedestrianising the bit between Main Street and or top end here and the rest. But the whole paragraph starts off, if cars are banned from Bingley. Well, that negates the whole paragraph.
Then it's not going to shop.
How would turning into a walking cycling town be appropriate if we have a lot of old people? Well, it's saying you can do both together. We want to promote walking from a health point of view. We want to promote cycling from a health point of view. If you don't want to cycle down from Eldrick because you've got to go up, you'll do something else. So I don't think we're doing it.
With speed lift up to Eldrick.
We're just promoting the health benefits of walking and cycling, irrespective of your age.
Yeah, of whether you want to do it or not. It's personal choice. Then it's talking about the burden of housing in brownfield sites, and we've already talked about that. So I would have thought we're not doing it. Interrupt me if you think I'm just overloading the meeting with my voice. Many residents that can't use cycling, walking or public transport. Stop making life difficult for them. Well, I didn't think I was. I don't think we were.
I couldn't understand that comment.
No, I don't think we have. You have already increased congestion and pollution with your new road structures. I think she's talking to Bradford.
A lot of this is Bradford Council.
Yeah, talking to Bradford.
It's the first one for you.
Yeah. Nightmare, another town I won't be able to access. Well, again, I think we're trying to make Bingley better, not. I think
lots of people have just
assumed it's Bradford.
No, just taken. If you say pedestrianised Main Street, they're just saying that means no cars anywhere near it.
Maybe we need to talk about the car parks more when you talk about pedestrianisation, cycle lanes and better parking. And maybe it's because it's never mentioned.
I think the problem with that comment, though, not your comment, this comment, it just says nightmare. So it's not saying what in the 108 pages is a nightmare.
There's no thought behind it, is it? It's an observation.
It's talking about the whole thing.
Well, it's almost the next bit, though. That's the
planners have no understanding of disability. Yeah. So we do
almost a facetious comment.
No, not really. It's someone who's disabled and struggles to get around, I think.
Yeah.
But every pavement has got a wheelchair ramp down it.
We have got disabled. We have got disabled friendly statements in the neighbourhood plan where aspirations are that people do look at that when they're planning. The comments about the route up to Five Eyes Locks for disabled we've already mentioned tonight, so I think we are aware of that. Not a cycle friendly landscape. Well, we all agree with that. The comment about submitting a feedback form with general comments is good. I hope they've done that. We've discussed it. Then they're talking about pedestrian movements again, traffic modelling and impact required traffic calming in Main Street and Foundry Hill. We've already discussed.
I think that was Catherine.
Oh, well, okay, we've
So I think
already
it was
discussed.
because we've done the survey and then they've gone
Yeah.
into more detailed points.
And that was the end of the comments.
Yeah.
So unless anyone has any more comments, we can discuss or I've missed any. So the actual survey itself, David has already, or someone over there already commented about the age profile on the back, which is no one of under 18 and no one from 18 to 29. The majority of 45 to 55. My problem is that there's only 43 people commented on that, and only 69 of the whole document in a township of some 17,000 people. So we were not expecting a lot. We were expecting 200 to 400, because we were talking about admin staff of plowing the comments into SurveyMonkey. So to only get 69 comments from the older population.
Responses, wasn't it?
Responses, yeah.
66 if you take out the staff making sure the survey worked.
66.
66 responses, about 18 comments.
Yes.
So
From 17,000 people. So
Statistically insignificant.
It's a disappointing response, isn't it?
however, having said that, all 16 councillors were elected without challenge, without vote, without what So I don't think the Bingley town people are either not getting the information, or if they've got the information, they don't care.
They may well think we've done a good job.
But they're not saying.
It followed so closely on from the Bradford one. The Bradford
Yeah.
consultation was so close beforehand that, and then ours came. I don't think they could. I think they probably thought it was the same thing.
We did have a challenge on Facebook. I personally had a challenge on Facebook to tell them why a lot of comments came in on the Ilkley plan and Bradford ignored them. I've got nothing to do with Ilkley. I know nothing about what you're talking about, so I cannot do what you're suggesting. Go talk to an Ilkley councillor. That's I don't know.
I think there's a general disinterest from the younger generation about what they perceive as politics. I think that's what it's all about. They're not interested. Just get on with life.
I think you've got to expand that wider. The result of 60 odd.
Oh, yes.
It's not just the young people.
No. But generally, the people that's obviously you move it to the next generation or the next group, they're obviously married and they've got commitments and they've just got enough on the plate to sort themselves out, to keep their head above what we keep hearing on the news, the bad news about people, how they're living and how many people's in debt. And it's not one or two, it's millions. And so if you believe what they tell you, whether it's true or not, I don't know. There's obviously some managing of the information, but we can see that there's a general apathy about it altogether, and that's really where we're faced with. And I think to try to analyse it and get it through, it's just telling us what we already know.
Well, whilst I agree with that, we have got 66 comments, and I do think we need to go through every particular page to say whether there's anything in the plan based on the people that did comment. But I don't think there is, but I do feel obliged to go through it, especially as
well. If you get the top two, they're just saying.
Well, I'm saying question one, 65% agree with us, so job done.
Move on.
Yeah. Question two. Do you agree with the objectives? Again, 66-44 of the comments agreed, so 2/3 agreed.
60%.
No, there isn't any. I just think we ought to go through it to record them in the minutes. That we have to, rather than say it's fine. I think we need to do the due diligence of saying yes, we agree that we've done a good job and it's appropriate. So the approach to retaining community facilities is inappropriate. Again, 23.73 strongly agree and 45.76 agree, meaning that we have it's a 70% near enough agreement there, with no one disagreeing. Are the identified facilities the key ones? Again, we have 15% disagreeing and 64% agreeing. So again, we've done a good job.
But again, people have disagreed or strongly disagreed, but they haven't said what they would like in their
comments.
There isn't anything, is there?
No, there isn't anything.
They weren't asked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, they all could have made comments at the end of the survey.
Yeah,
They could make general comments, yeah, but not specific. I mean, they probably interpret it. I'm not criticising. All right, I'm just saying that I think, given the format of the document, agree, not agree, and so on, but not to make a comment specifically about that question.
yeah.
But a comment at the end.
There is a sway on. Sorry, John. Just cut you off there,
no, it's okay.
Question 5: design of new development in Bingley. Is that appropriate? This is one that first sticks out to me. That the 27% disagreeing or strongly disagreeing, but again they don't say why. 26% sat in the middle, so they neither agreed nor disagreed, and 47% said they agreed or strongly agreed. So the ayes have it, but the nays don't say why they disagree, and unless it's contained in the comments which we've already discussed about brownfield sites and things like that.
I think it's also worth pointing out with this survey, you can see that a lot of them skipped some of the answers.
Yes, that's 51 as opposed to 69.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good point, Eve. Thank you. Again, we come back to the current trend about the approach to the town centre. Is that appropriate? Again, we have a 65%, 64% agree. So again, job done. We're good there. To retain current employment sites, again, 78% agreed or strongly agreed. Was 8% strongly disagreed. That's 4 comments, but again, no real vociferous comments on the 18 comments we have. So difficult to see with 68% agreeing whether we should change anything. I'm pretty sure that where we are, because we are where we are, I think Lee would agree that even if he wasn't there, start up small businesses, is that appropriate? Again, 78% in agreement and 4 people strongly disagree. And I'm just wondering whether the 4% who disagreed are the 4 people who didn't want the plan in the first place. And they've just gone through it and gone disagree. But they haven't done that consistently because there's some with 0%. It's difficult to make these assumptions when you don't have it. Well, you don't have any data, do you? Based on the housing needs analysis of tenure split, housing provision, newly forming households, we've got 58% in agreement, 24% not in agreement. So again, 2-to-1 majority. So again, I think the ayes have it there. I don't know what the question that was question 9. Question 10, cycling and walking routes. Now here you'd think that you would have 49 answered it, 21 skipped it, 65% odd said they agree with it. But here we have 11 people strongly disagreeing and 4 people disagreeing. But based on the percentages, it's 32 people saying yes and 15 saying no. So again, 2-to-1 majority for agreement of what we said is right. Thing 8, question 11 about local green spaces. Again, a massive majority in saying we've agreed. It's nearly 83%. So with 13% saying no. But again, that's a 5-to-1. So, yes, 5-to-1. So again, I would think that we got that right. Bearing in mind also that these are generic questions, we didn't want to overload the survey monkey with very detailed questions of saying why did you disagree, which we could have done, I guess, but we would have had so much more data. In other words, forcing them to say why they. If you had disagreed with this, why did you disagree? That might be something we could look at in the future, which would force the comments rather than the generic comments. Green infrastructure principles about connecting the green infrastructure for recreation and nature recovery. Again, it's the same 85% and the same 15% say no. So there's a bunch of people out there who are disagreeing with the whole thing. Again, I'm not sure why, but again, 5-1. The town character buildings, I thought that would come up with, a few people disagreeing, especially if they owned the houses that we were designated. But again, the disagreement drops to 11.36, and the agreement stays steady at 85%. So again, I think we got that right as well. Milner Fields, 4 people are strongly disagreeing with it. 2 people are disagreeing with it. So 6 people are disagreeing with it, but 88% are agreeing with it. So again, I think we got that right. So, I think these are huge ticks in the box for of the 66 people that responded. But again, you can't. You're taking. I feel we're taking the plaudit when we have no information. But of the people that were concerned, we got the answers that we wanted, I think. Views and vistas, last one. One of the last ones. Again, 85% with 11% saying they strongly disagree. Don't know why anyone would want to disagree with the vista.
What to disagree with.
Then question 16, which is the comments which we got. Why have you completed the survey? Well, 87% of them was they lived in Bingley, which is 39 out of the 66. 8 people worked in Bingley, 5 people visited, and 0 people did not know Bingley, which is good because that meant it weeded out the people who were troublemaking from Brighton. But at least
foreigners.
At least they weren't admitted to it anyway. So a lot of people of the respondents lived and worked and visited Bingley, so they knew Bingley, which is good. The age group we've already talked about.
And the story.
I don't have any more. Let's go back to the agenda and say we've done consideration of Cottingley. We've done the date of the next meeting. We're not excluding the question public. 21st of May. 21st of May. So there is no any other business. So unless anyone's got any more comments on that survey, which I've cantered through, I deem this meeting closed.
These lights really do your head in after a while, don't they? These blue lights, I feel like it's all flickering.
Do you think the lights are?
Oh, they're too harsh for me. They flicker. I can see them flickering.
I can see you in sunglasses next week.
Yeah, no. It does protect whatever.